Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, people. This is your boy Malik Miles, or whatever you want to call me. Uh, I just wanted to make a video on Oblivion and how to play it because it's my favorite game of all time. Um, I can see that a lot of people really don't understand the leveling system. A lot of people say it's bad, and they don't understand the attributes and all this other stuff like that. And I just wanted just to put like a little quick off script explanation and just very simple, not really too numbery, not just this explanation of how it goes, right? So, as you see, I just died as I was playing this character. I have a lot of characters. I was just going through them to see who was who. So, how would be the best? I think the best explanation will be at the character creation screen with the classes. I always have a save right there. So, we're going to go to. We're going to go down the list. We're going to go to specializations, attributes, and then we're going to go into skills, and then I'm going to explain how all that ties together and how classes are basically supposed to be played and how you're supposed to tie them together and make the game fun for yourself by picking the class that you would like, right? So, one thing I'll explain about classes is that this is how you will play the game entirely. This is who you are, right? Are you an acrobat? Are you the agent? Are you the archer? Are you assassin, barbarian, merit, bard? And how you decide that is by looking at the skills and having an understanding of how the skills are utilized in the game. And the only way to really do that is by playing the game. You know, you will make multiple characters as you play the game. You'll have a more understanding of how the skills work and spells and what synergizes and all that type of stuff. So what I'm going to start with is specializations. So you have three specializations, right? Your specializations give you 10 skill points into the skills that they govern, and they also level up those skills slightly faster, as it says at the top. So the combat specialization allows you to progress armor, athletics, blade, block, blunt, hand to hand, and heavy armor quicker, and it puts 10 skill points to those skills. Magic governs alchemy, alteration, conjuration, destruction, illusion, mysticism, and restoration. All the magic skills, basically. Stealth governs acrobatics, light armor, marksman, mercantile, security, sneak, and speechcraft. Right. So depending on which of these classes that you play, they have a specialization, and as you just read, that those specializations have certain skills that certain skills that are under each specialization. So, as for example, with the acrobat, security, sneak, acrobatics, marksman, and speechcraft will have already a plus 10 to those skills if you choose this class, and block and blade will not, and those skills will slightly have an increase of XP when you use them, right? Block and blade are going to be your slower skills that are going to level up and you'll get up, because this is not really a combat class. This is a stealth class. These are your stealth abilities that you're really going to be using, and they encourage you to use these primarily, but you have blade and block for your defensive skills just in case you need to defend yourself. Also marksman. Marksman is probably going to be your main form of damage, right? Blade and block are just there for you to be able to defend yourself, essentially, right? So that's basically how specialization works. Like as we go down, you see combat with the archer, your armorer, blade, blunt, hand to hand skills will level up a lot quicker because this specializes in combat. That's you're going to be mainly be in combat. That's kind of weird because I think marksman should have been in combat, but I see what they're talking about with that, because you know stealth has to have some type of defensive measure. But I see why they did that. Or as you go down, we'll see like a magic focused one. Like this one with the Battle Mage, Destruction, Alteration, Conjuration, Mysticism, and Alchemy will have a +10 and will level up a lot quicker. You know? Blunt and Blade, they'll just be base. They won't have a +10 and they won't level up as fast. So those won't be your strongest suits, but they will be an option for you to use, right? That's why Strength is an attribute. I'm going to get into that for a second. So that's basically how specializations work. That's what they mean by specialization. It's just like a little bit more thought into your build when you're trying to create a character, especially like if you're trying to really min-max with your race pick, because depending on what race you choose and what gender you are, you do start with more of attributes start in effect to your skills. So let's next we're going to get into attributes. Now, attributes are extremely important, and people obsess over attributes. I don't think you should obsess over attributes. Attributes are just there to help, and they do define your build and your character. They level up naturally depending on your class, because depending on your class, you're going to be using skills that your attributes are going to help out with. So you're going to just level them up naturally, and you'll already have bonuses to them, and I'm going to get into that. So, as we see in the description for strength, well, before I even get into that, each attribute does something different for your character. It increases something like strength, increases melee damage. It says in the description, we'll just read it. Affects how much you can carry, how much fatigue you have, how much damage you can do with melee weapons such as swords and axes. Governs the skills of blunt, blade, and hand-to-hand. We're going to get into that in a second. Intelligence. Affects your total magicka and magic use. Governs the skills of alchemy, conjuration, and mysticism. Willpower. Affects how quickly you regenerate magicka and how much fatigue you have. Governs the skill of destruction, alteration, and restoration. Agility. Affects your ability to maneuver and balance your total fatigue and damage done by bows. Governs the skills of security, sneak, and marksman. Speed. Determines how fast you move. Simple. Governs the skills of athletics, light armor, and acrobatics. Endurance. Affects how much fatigue you have, your health, and how much health you will increase when you sleep and raise levels. So each level, depending on how much endurance you have, the higher your endurance, the more health you get each level up. Governs the skill of block, armor, and heavy armor. Personality. Affects how much people like you, which leads to better information gathering. Governs the skills of speechcraft, merchant, and illusion. And luck. Luck has an effect on everything you do. It governs no skills. And I'm going to get into that later on towards the end. So, basically, they all do something to, make something for your character to make it easier depending on what you want to do with your character. Now, the important thing about attributes is where it says it governs a certain skill. So, for strength, governs the skill of blunt, blade, and hand-to-hand. So that means when you use the blade skill, let's say you're level 1, your blade skill is level 20. And during this level, you've upgraded your blade, leveled up your blade skill 5 times. So your blade went from 20 to 25 on level 1. When you go to level up, you get 3 pips that you can put in each one of these attributes. Each pip gives you 1 point towards each of these attributes. But if you use these skills, let's say like you level up blade 5 times this one level, it gives you bonus 5 points to your pip. So instead of getting 1 point, you get 5. So let's say, for example, your strength is 50. You level up your blade skill 5 times during this level. You get 5 bonus points when you sleep and level up, and you put those bonus attribute points, since you've used your blade, you got 5 points in your strength, in your bonus, only in strength, because you did blade skill. Now it will go from 50 to 55 instead of going from 50 to 51 if you didn't use any of these skills that it governs. You get what I'm saying? So that kind of synergizes with the class that you would use. So let's say strength, for example, right? Since we're using that just as a base example. Strength is a favorite attribute of the barbarian. Its skills that govern strength are armor, blade, and blunt, and hand to hand. It has all of them right there. Well, not armor. Armor is endurance. Excuse me, my bad. It has blade, blunt, and hand to hand. It has all of them right there, right? So, as you're playing your barbarian with your barbarian class, right, and you're using two-handed, as you can see, they favor two-handed. It's a barbarian, right? As you're using those two-handed bladed claymores or those blunt warhammers, and you're leveling up your blunt skill and blade skill, and probably hand to hand when you just feel like it. You know, you get disarmed, or you just put your weapon away. You just want to do hand to hand and level that up. Each time you level that up, you're getting bonus attribute points each level up to your strength. So let's say each level up you put 5 into strength, right? So let's say every 2 levels you get 10 points of strength. So that's, so by the time 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. By the time level 10, your strength should be at 100. Bam, and now you have strength out the way. One of your favorite attributes, strength, is already at 100. Now you don't have to worry about strength anymore every time you level up. That's another pip right there that you can put somewhere else. You level up your speed. It's fully leveled up because what does it govern? Light armor. You're taking hits as you're playing as a barbarian. You're a barbarian. You're going to be taking hits. That light armor is going to be leveling up pretty slowly as you keep on taking hits, and the more damage you take. So you're going to get those pip bonus points towards speed. It's going to happen, right? That's why it's secondary on the list. Another major skill is block. You get 3 pips each level up. Block is governed during endurance. That 3rd pip can go into endurance. You're going to have bonus attributes. You're going to be blocking during combat, right? Speed is also governed by athletics. Armor is also governed by endurance. You see how it all just goes together? As you'll be doing these, you'll have 3 attributes that will just naturally just be getting bonus points as you're playing this class. That's how this game works. That's how the game synergizes with each other, with everything that works, right? And as you keep on leveling up, you'll start getting better equipment. I think it's like every 5-10 levels or so like that, you start to see different tiers of enemies, and enemies will, like bandits will start having better armors, and you'll start seeing like stronger versions of animals and creatures, and just different creatures entirely at a certain point. And as you're leveling up these attributes, like every 10 levels, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, it should be at 100. Even if it's not that big of a deal, because it will get there eventually. It's not, you don't have to really obsess over it. You'll naturally get there just by playing your class. And as you're leveling up your character level, right? Your full-on character level, each level, every time you level up, you'll start seeing stronger enemies, and you'll start seeing stronger equipment and stronger enchantments. And your damage is going to start coming from that. An iron sword is weaker than an elven sword. You know what I mean? Like a steel sword is weaker than a dwarven sword. Combined with your strength attribute at 100 and your blade skill like at 50, plus the damage of the sword, your damage is going to show. As long as you're playing your class, as long as you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do with the class that you chose or you made, because you can make a custom class. Just make sure it makes sense. And that's how the game functions, you know, and you're supposed to keep up with that. By the time you reach level 30, 50, or whatever the fuck, you should have the best armor that you can make with your enchantments that should be available to you and stuff like that. You should have the best weapons. You should have the best buffs, the best potions. You know, like, as you keep on going, you're going to start refining your build. You're going to start using spells or just buffs or scrolls or blessings to kind of push past the limits of that 100 mark and stuff like that. You're going to start finding that type of stuff to make you even stronger, and that's the point of the game. Like, when people complain about the leveling system and then the game starts to get a little too difficult, is because you kind of fucked your build. It's not a good build. You got to go back to the drawing board, make a new character, do something. You did something wrong. You know, you're not really keeping up with what you chose, because remember, your specialization also matters too. You can choose the combat specialization, but if you choose to taper off of that and start using magic, it's not going to level up as quickly. And if it's not one of your major skills, you're not going to level up at all. You're going to be inefficient. You know, that's not what you chose. And that's how the system works. You have to work with the system. You know, you cannot go against the system of the game. And that's why I think a lot of people fail to understand. So even if I would make my own class, let's make a quick one real quick. I would choose combat. Let's choose combat with strength and let's say strength and willpower. Fuck it, let's try something different. Let's do strength and willpower, right? So we're going to put blade and blunt for, of course, our little combat skills. Blade, blunt, and let's put hand to hand for, because, you know, strength is one of our major skills, so we can put 3 into that. I put willpower for one of my things. Let's put destruction. What governs willpower? Destruction, alteration, and restoration. So let's put destruction and alteration. Right? And then so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 2 more. Let's put heavy armor on and restoration. So I just made a class where I have blade and blunt as my major forms of damage, right? Actually, let's take alteration off and put block on. Alright, so I made a class where blade and blunt and destruction are my major forms of damage, right? So I'm gonna use blades or blunts depending on blade or blades or whatever, like blunt weapons, to do my damage, and destruction also to do damage depending on the situation. They can be close. I can use a touch spell, which does more damage than a ranged spell, and that can be my form of ranged damage is through my destruction spells. I have hand to hand because hand to hand just goes with strength and is useful if you get disarmed or if you just want to have fun, whatever. It's another form of damage that you can do, and it also goes towards your strength, so you can just practice with it if you want to. Heavy armor. Now this is where the 3rd pip comes in, and also why I put block on there, because I'm gonna be blocking a lot during my melee combat. And heavy armor to, you know, absorb some damage. That's going to increase my endurance attribute. You notice it's not my favorite attribute, but I get 3 pips each level up. So I'm going to put block and heavy armor for my 3rd pip, and restoration will also go with my willpower with destruction. You see how I kind of just threw that together? You know what I mean? And honestly, this is kind of like a variation of a Crusader build, if I'm going to be honest with you. This is kind of like the Crusader class, just with like a little bit of... Yeah, I don't think they have block. They have something else that I can't really think of right now. I think it's athletics. But, yeah, you see how that's a build. You know, that's a class. You can put that together. Everything synergizes. Everything is going to level correctly and pretty fast, and it has a purpose in your build and the combat and stuff, so everything will work, you know. And that's how a build works. All the classes have something like that. They have a way that you can play. They're all just play styles, honestly. Like a thief is a thief, a warrior is a warrior, a witch hunter is a ranged mage. You know what I mean? That uses bows. A sorcerer is just a mage that uses heavy armor. A pilgrim is, what does a pilgrim do? Honestly, let me see the skills: armor, blade, blunt, light armor, merchant, now speechcraft. Okay, they're like an adventurer class. Honestly, they're perfect just to be like a wanderer adventurer class. They're a pilgrim because their specialization is stealth, so their light armor, merchant, and speechcraft and security will go up. That's good for lot picking. That's good for selling things. That's good for giving information. Your light armor will go up pretty quickly. It's just that your block, armor, and blunt will go up a little slower and have, but that's where the personality, endurance, and favored goes into play. So I can see how that works out. That's how you have to look at it. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta see how the game will function with this class. And granted, you only get that by playing the game. But when you start playing the game, you make new characters. You're like, okay, let's try a new class. Let's see how this will work. Let's see how these skills line up with each other. Let's see what we can do with this. That's the beauty of Oblivion. Okay? And trust me, if you play the way that this is set up, you won't have a hard time at high levels. It'll be fine. You'll find equipment that will synergize with your class, that will make situations easier. And sometimes you just gotta use a bit of player agency and be like, how am I going to tackle this enemy or this situation, knowing that they're a little bit stronger than me. I'm more of a stealth class. This is an open area. How am I going to tackle this with what I got available? You know what I mean? This might have to be an open combat situation. So let me get some good poison that I used with my alchemy ability, with my alchemy skill. Put it on my tip of my arrow. Use my sneak skill to sneak into a good spot. Get a stealth shot in. Get that bonus sneak damage. Is going to go into open combat. I know it's not enough to kill him, but I did heavy damage. Now I can go into open combat and then, finish him off type shit. That's, like, the game has a lot, man. For an old game, it does a lot. It was way ahead of its time. And I felt like Bethesda over time tried to grasp that. And I feel like they got it with Starfield. People just don't see it. But yeah, the game's fine. Like, with its leveling and class system, you just have to get a grasp and understanding of how these skills will work with what you're trying to do and how they synergize well with your attributes and your specialization and everything. Like, in your role, you're playing an RPG, man, and you got to make a build. That's literally what this is. It's an RPG. But I hope that was a good explanation. I try to explain that as best I can when it comes to the classes and attributes and skills and all that other stuff. And yeah, thanks. Bye.